Hello. So I'm going to show you how to make the twisty hat, and we're going to use, well, I'm using a 36 peg loom, 3/4 inch gauge, and charisma yarn in the color Twilight. And so to get started, we are going to do an owl eye brim. So we'll just start on the brim. So I'm going to start by doing a chain cast on. It's a crochet chain cast on. I'm going to do it without a crochet hook. So what I do, I just take it, make a loop, just like that, and then put the working yarn through it and have a slip knot, and then I just place that on the first peg. And then I take my loom hook, put it under the loop, and pull the working yarn through to get a loop. And then I tighten it by pulling on the working yarn here in the back and make sure that this stitch is tight. And then I just take that loop, put it behind the next peg, holding on to it, and pull the working yarn through it. And that's all there is to the cast on. Put the loop behind, working yarn through, tighten it up, behind, working yarn through, tighten it up. At any time, if you want this loop to be smaller, you just pull on it. So working yarn behind and tightening it up. I mean the loop behind and tightening it up. And that's all there is to it. And we just do that all the way around the loop. So I'm just going to put you on pause because it'd be boring watching me do it all the way around the loom. And we will catch up when I'm close to the other side. Okay, so here I am almost at the end. So I take the loop, put it behind the peg, tighten it up, and then here's the one we started at. And so you just take the loop and let it fall over there. And just take the loom hook and knit it over, and now it's all secured and you're ready to go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do now is finish the cast on. So I'm going to do a row of owl eye. And so I just do a U-wrap over peg 1, come over, and then I do a wrap over peg 1 and 2, and just knit it over, and knit it over. Whatever peg you're on, peg 1, you go over peg 1 and 2 and knit it over. I have lots of videos of owl eye on my channel, so you can go watch those if you'd like to see more of a demonstration of it. And then just around and knit it over. And peg 1 over peg 1 and 2, knit it over. And we just do owl eye all the way around. Okay, so I will meet you back up at the beginning peg again. Okay, so I've done my row of owl eye all the way around the loom, and now I'm going to do one row of purl, and it'll be the only purl in the whole hat. And I just want to do it here at the beginning of the brim to make sure that the edge stays nice and straight. So how you purl is you put the working yarn into the loop. There we go. And then pull up the working yarn, take the loop off, and let the loop fall to the front. So take the hook, put it in the loop, pull up the working yarn, and you pull up the whole loop and put the new loop on. Under, pick up the working yarn, put it on the peg, and tighten it up. And there's lots and lots of videos on YouTube if you haven't purled before. So we just do one row of purl. So I will meet you up when we get back to the starter peg again. Okay, so I've done my row of purl, and now I'm just going to do owl eye, and our brim is going to be owl eye stitch. So how we start that, there's our peg 1. We always come over and do a U-wrap on peg 1, and now we can go and do a second wrap over peg 1 and one over peg 2. And wherever we are, we're on peg 1, so we wrap 1 and 2, and we just keep going like that. And you can make your brim however long you like it. You could make just a 1-inch brim if you like thin brims. I'm going to do about 1.5 inches. If you like a really long brim, you can do one that's 2 inches long. So I'm just going to keep working in owl eye till I get the brim the length that I want it, and then we can catch up. Okay, so we'll see you in a few. Okay, so now that our brim is done, and that's looking really nice here, all we do now is start on the twisty stitch. And my brim is about 1.5 inches, close to 2 inches, which is how I like my brims. Okay, so now we just do the twisty stitch, and we do that for as long as you like your hat to be, how many inches you like yours. I'm probably going to do around 7 for me, for my size of head. And so you just measure it from the peg down, including the brim, until you get to the measurement you like your hats. And so I'll show you the twisty stitch, and we'll be doing that all the way. Okay, so you do a U-wrap over peg 1, knit it off, and then you come back over this way and then knit that off, and you're going to be really loose. I'm just loosening this up. There we go. Okay, so you come over and do a U-wrap, and then you come back over the peg the other way doing a U-wrap, knit it off. It's all done on one peg, very easy. So over the next peg, knit it off, come back nice and loose, knit it off. Next peg, knit it off. Okay, and I'm being very, very loose because it makes the stitch nicer. So this is loose. And come back, and I'm loose. Nice and loose. You can pull out if you find you're being too tight. And that's all there is to this stitch. So very easy. It gives you a nice textured stitch. It's a little bit different when you use it in the round like this than when you use it in a flat panel, but I like it both ways. Okay, so over, and then over this way. If you find you have trouble, I do have a twisty stitch video on YouTube, and I also have a twisty stitch 10-stitch blanket, so you can look at the stitch. And also on this video you can slow it down if you like. But that's all we're going to do. We're just going to go around the loom in twisty stitch until we get long enough. And when we're long enough, then we'll close the hat off. A little bit of a lip right here on this loom that bothers me. I'm going to have to file it off. And you can see the twisty stitch is starting in here. I don't know if you can see it, but you're getting a little bit of a textured stitch showing already up here. But you'll see that as you move along doing this stitch. And as you see, you can whip along at a pretty fast speed, and what you're doing is you're putting 2 stitches on each peg. So that's the same as if you were doing a knit or a U-wrap or something, and we were doing 2 rows to get the 2 stitches on that peg. So you're just sailing along. Now if you find you have trouble when you're going this way, right, then you're too tight. It should be easy as pie to knit it over. And that's how you want it. You'll get a much nicer stitch. And your wrists will stay nice too, because you're not having to struggle to take over any yarn. Okay, so that's all you have to do, and you just keep going, and it just fits right in there. And away we go. So I will see you when we have some length on the hat, and then we'll have a look at it. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, so here's the hat, and I've got it the length that I want. And I'm just going to show you a couple things. Well, first of all, you can see how it looks, and I'm going to move it so you can see the beautiful ridges from the twisty stitch. Looks quite different in the round, but it still gives a fabulous texture. So it looks really, really nice on the hat, and it really goes nicely, of course, with owl eye. Now, what I do a lot of times when I make an owl eye brim is owl eye looks really nice on the other side. As you can see, it's just a nice little wavy stitch. So what I do a lot of times when I have an owl eye brim is I make my hat extra long so it can be a slouchy hat. But then when I want it warmer and I want to turn it into a beanie, I can just fold up the brim, because owl eye looks really nice when it's folded. So there you go. You can do that. So there's just something that I wanted to tell people, because I've been doing that. Okay, so now we're going to bind off. And because my yarn is thick, I'm going to do 1 extra decrease. I do that sometimes with really thick yarn, or especially if I have a bulky yarn and I want to have it a bit slouchy, because with slouch hats you really do need to decrease it a bit more. So, but we're going to do an easy decrease. So all we do when we hit the length we want is you go around with a row of E-wrap. So just do a row of E-wrap, and I usually just E-wrap about 3 pegs at a time. I never want to get in the habit of doing the whole loom, end up getting laddering. But I don't use E-wrap very often anyway. Okay, so just go around the loom and E-wrap it. So I'll meet you back at the beginning after we do our row of E-wrap. Okay, so I've E-wrapped the whole loom. Now what you're going to do is count 4 pegs. Here's peg 1, starter peg 1, 2, 3, 4, and you take the yarn from peg 4 and move it on to peg 3. And it'll be easy for me if I just do it like this. There. Okay, and then you have an empty peg on peg 4. Then you go 1, 2, 3, 4 again, and then you can just take the working yarn off, or I mean the loop off, and put it on the peg 3. Boy, this is such an awkward angle for me, but got it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll try it like this. I can see better too. Yeah, that's going to work for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoop. Okay, so that's all you do. So I'll meet you up when we've moved every 4th peg onto the 3rd peg in a few. Okay, I've gone all the way around, and there'll be often be, depending what loom you use, a couple pegs that don't quite work out. Just leave the yarn on there. Don't over decrease. And then we're just going to take our working yarn and E-wrap again all around the loom. So E-wrapping, when you hit the pegs that have the 2 loops on, you just take them over like they're 1 loop, just like that. Okay. Oh, I wrapped that peg. You're not supposed to wrap the pegs that you've taken the yarn off of there. So E-wrap the pegs with the yarn on. Go behind the pegs that are empty. And then E-wrap the pegs that have yarn on them. Go behind. And go behind. And this is going to give us a thinner brim. Okay, so you've got the idea. You're just E-wrapping and going behind the peg that are empty. Okay, so, oh, you know, I'm not going to be at the beginning anymore. I'm almost there. So I'll just quickly do this and then show you the next bit. You're welcome to do any bind off you want. I'm just showing you one. Okay, so now we're going to end here, and I'm going to start over. We have these groups of 3 and then an empty peg, right? Groups of 3 and an empty peg. So what we're going to do is take the yarn from this peg. So here's peg 1. Whoopsie, I'll go here. Here's peg 1, and here's peg 2, and here's peg 3. Won't look at this one with the extra thing, and there's peg 4 that we took the yarn off. So we're just going to take the yarn now from peg 2 and move it over to peg 1. And again, how did I do that so it wasn't so awkward? I went like this. There. Okay, so then you're going to have yarn, empty peg, yarn, empty peg as you go by doing it this way. So then you've got the next 4 pegs, 3 with yarn, 3 without. Take the one on peg 2 and move it over to peg 4. Okay, so you're just going to keep doing that and going around the loom, and I'll meet you up once you've got them moved. Okay, so we have that all done. And so we've got empty pegs, pegs with yarn, empty pegs, pegs with yarn, except for the one peg here that I have that has the extra yarn on it. So we just do one last row of E-wrap. So we skip the empty pegs and we E-wrap the pegs with yarn, and it's the same thing. We take over the pegs that have 2 yarns on them, skip the empty pegs, Okay, so that's all you do, and I'll meet you back at the when we've got those all moved, and then all you'll have is one yarn on each peg. Okay, so I'm all the way around, and now we've got one loop on everything. We've got the extra one here, but no problem. So now all we're going to do is put our working yarn around the loom 1.5 times and then cut it. And I just got to figure out what I did with my scissors. There it is. Got it. There we go. Okay, now you could get a needle and put a needle in here and just take it off with a needle. That can be easy. Or you can just use your loom hook. If you figure out where you put it, there we go. And you can just pick up the yarn with your loom hook like that. And that's all I'm going to do today. So you just put your loom hook under and pull the working yarn through it. And we're just picking up the loops. Okay, and then we have the one loop left right here. We pick it up. Okay, and then I'm just going to do the one loop we started at. And then all you have to do is pop them off the loom because they're all picked up. You may be able to do it with your fingers. It all depends on the loom, the yarn, how tight you E-wrap. Okay. Okay, and then all we're going to do, got all the loops picked up. I'm just going to draw it a little bit, but we're going to take it and put the yarn on the inside and turn the hat inside out. And the hat looks really nice on the other side, as you can see. It looks nice this way too. So if you want to make the hat reversible, you just be very, very neat with how you draw string it, and at the end make sure you weave in the yarn really well. And you can wear it this way and fold up the brim too. So lots of options. But what we're going to do is pull this in, and we're going to work away to make sure we get everything tight, all the rows tight. There. Draw it in. There. And you can see what it looks like. It just gave us a flatter top. And we'll go to the other side. See? Just gave us a bit of a flatter top. But we're going to make sure we tighten that up so there's no hole here. And so if you're going to have it for a bulky hat, there you go, you're going to have a nice bulky hat. So, and that's just making one extra decrease. Okay, so now I need to get my needle to finish this off, so I'll be back in a few. Okay, I have my needle, and what I'm going to do is cut this a bit shorter now. Maybe about, we need enough to sew it on and weave it in if you're going to weave it in. So maybe there. Okay, and I'm just going to thread my needle. Okay, and I'm just going to make sure that it's still really nice and tight here. I'm going to hold it so it stays tight. And then you can see where the hole is. So I'm just going to neatly go into a couple yarns there and make a knot to hold it tight. There. And that, as you can see now, is nice and tight. And then to make sure it stays secure, I'm just going to sew around these lines, hiding the needle in the yarn as much as I can. When I'm about halfway around, I'll make another knot. Make sure that the hat doesn't come apart, and then sew around the last little bit back to the beginning. And you can sew around more if you want, but I'm going to do one more knot, and I'm going to feel like that's plenty for me. It's going to stay nice and secure. And then you can weave in your end if you want, if you're going to have it reversible. Go. Nice and tight. And I think I'll just do one more knot. There. Okay. And I'm going to check before I'm done, and there we go. Very nicely done. Nice and flat. So I'm just going to leave mine in the hat and not worry about it. Just cut it, because it doesn't matter. It's going to be my hat. I've been wanting to make a hat out of this yarn for a long time, but I wanted to wait till the blanket I was making was more done, so I knew I could use the yarn, still have enough. Okay, so then we just stretch out the hat. There we go. And there it is. A nice little hat. It's got a nice flattened join. There it is. And very nice textured pattern. So I hope you enjoyed the video. This is the Twisty hat with owl eye brim. And until next time, bye.